On this edition of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast, a look back at 2019 and a look ahead to 2020 with our own Ian Wilson. And we get the up-to-date on the Edmonton Prospects situation with Jordan Blundell. Welcome to the first episode of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast of 2020, a.k.a. episode 70. I'm Joe McFarland. I hope the Christmas break treated you all well, and it certainly treated our very own Ian Wilson really well. The ADS co-creator, co-contributor, co-conspirator, whatever you want to call him. He's our first guest for this very first episode of the new decade. Ian, welcome as always.
Happy New Year, Joe.
Do you have a favorite gift, Alberta baseball related, that you got?
Ooh, good question. I was lucky enough to get some baseball themed gifts. I got some Cannons gear that my wife tracked down courtesy City of Edmonton and their fine work. And my mom, of course, I was raised in Medicine Hat. My mom still lives there, so she's always sniffing things out, and she found a 1984 souvenir program for the Medicine Hat Blue Jays.
Very cool.
Which is just awesome. There's ads for Lloyd Mosby in there, and some vintage pics of Bob Ridley, the Riddler, that are just fantastic, and as well as some Medicine Hat Blue Jays baseball card sets. One which had journeyman catcher Eric Kratz, who's I don't even know if he's still playing, but he
did last year, but I don't know if he's on anybody's roster for 2020. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, he keeps ticking anyways, and also Chris Carpenter. One of the sets had a card of him in there as well. So obviously he had an illustrious career as well. So really cool to get some of those goodies under the tree. I
gotta say that one of the underappreciated stars of Alberta Dugout Stories happens to be our respective families. Because let's face it, our wives, our parents, our families, all in all, have embraced what we do and allow us to do what we do, and then they go and reward us with Christmas gifts. Phenomenal. Now, mine wasn't necessarily baseball Alberta related, but it was certainly baseball related. And you can see all these photos on our Instagram page if you want to. There was a nice metal sign for Topps baseball cards that I got. It is now hanging quite proudly in my man cave. So I got to say a kudos to our families for diving into the baseball love that we both share. All right, let's get into the conversation at hand, which is obviously this time of year we start looking back on the year that was and looking ahead to the year coming up. And let's start with the year that was. I'm going to ask you, Ian, how are you personally going to remember 2019?
Well, I think it'd be pretty hard not to dub certain pitcher from Calgary as the newsmaker of the year for what he did in 2019. That of course being Calgary Redbirds alum Mike Soroka, and I mean just an insanely good year, and one of those things where each one of his starts really became must see TV, and you wanted to tune in and see what he was capable of. And by the end of the year, he's an all-star. He's in the running for the NL Rookie of the Year, NL Cy Young. He's named the Tip O'Neill winner as the best Canadian baseball player, and he's also in the running for the best finalist for the best Canadian athlete. So it'd be hard to top those achievements, but just kind of seeing what he was capable of and seeing more of his story. And even in the off season here, you did a lot of podcast work interviewing people from Baseball Alberta, and we saw a lot of the camps that he did, and just the influence that he had and the work that he did. Just knowing that he wasn't just going to come home and take the off season and veg and do nothing. He really did a good job of, to my eye, of paying forward what his success was in this year and just helping young baseball players in the province kind of learn from what he's done.
Yeah, that's the amazing part to me is he completely embraced that idea of being the Baseball Alberta ambassador, for lack of a better term, right? Like whether it was doing the camps or going to the Baseball Alberta AGM or giving shout outs where he can to family and loved ones back home. I mean, he was playing the game, and it'd be, like you said, so easy for him to maybe rest in Atlanta or head down to Florida or whatever the case may be. And he was as humble as you can possibly get. And I know you chatted with him after the season as well. I mean, he's given up so much of his time to make the game a little better here in this province. And for such a young man, that's been the most impressive part, I think, not just in my eyes, but it seems like everybody's eyes.
Yeah, and you hope that there isn't too much weight that comes along with that. There's a lot of signing autographs and increase in signing autographs and doing events, and whether it's charitable events or development events, and all the fanfare and accolades that come with it, but also your schedule fills up quite a bit. So you just hope that isn't anything that is too taxing on him. I know that's, he's a pretty smart guy, so I'm sure he gets his rest and gets his time to himself when he needs it. And just excited to see what he can do in 2020. And obviously a lot of eyes will be on him now to see if, just to make sure last year wasn't a fluke. I hesitate to even say that. I don't think it was, but it's one of those games where you just have to keep proving yourself constantly, right?
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Now, you were our man about town. I might have been the voice of Alberta Dugout Stories, but you were certainly the face. You were out everywhere. Is there a specific event or game or situation you found yourself in during the course of the year that really stands out to you in terms of just being out there in the baseball community?
There's always so much going on, and there were a few things that come to mind. A couple things in Okotoks. One was the Women's Invitational was just a great event to take in, and just to see the caliber of play and some of the great female players, both from Alberta and across the country, come here and get to use some great facilities down there. That was one thing. Of course, on the Western Canadian Baseball League front, I was able to take in that title clinching game in Okotoks and see the Dogs win at home, and that was a pretty special year for them. Especially going through Edmonton. Edmonton has kind of been a nemesis of theirs for quite some time, and it's been tricky getting past them. And new format, you had best of 5 reduced to a best of 3 series, and so to see them kind of win it all and do so for the first time in about a decade was a pretty great thing to witness in person. Of course, that's the second year in a row that the WCBL champ is an Alberta team. It was the Mavericks the year before, who also had their own special series win, and but I wasn't able to witness that one in person. So definitely being at the ballpark and getting to take it in was just a fantastic event, and a pretty wild game in its own right. There's collisions at the center field fence, and there's lots of kind of small ball plays and lead changes back and forth. So those events really do stand out.
One thing that really stood out to me during the course of the year as well, once again, I think the same holds true for 2018 as much as it did 2019, is just the candidness that the athletes, the coaches, the volunteers, the teams all had in really welcoming us back to the diamond and allowing us to tell their stories. It wasn't just the typical, got to give it 110%, work hard, all that kind of stuff. They really welcomed us into telling their stories. And so whether they were really young, 14, 15-year-old athletes, whether they were college athletes, WCBL athletes, you had coaches, all kinds of people from different backgrounds, all willing to come and tell their stories. And I know that you benefited from that as much as I did, is they were more than happy to come out and say a few words to us.
Yeah, and I think one thing, you get the collective impression that there really is an interest in growing the game and promoting baseball among that community. Of course, you get rivalries and you get personality clashes here and there, like as you would in any sport. But for the most part, there really it seems to be a genuine interest in elevating the status of the game. And even in the case of rivalries where you can see them, with these different personalities kind of give a knowing glance and a nod and a tip of the cap to the people and the organizations they're competing against. And I think that's refreshing. I think, a lot of different sports and different leagues, you can see athletes kind of cut themselves off from media and from interviews, or they may be a little quick to to look at the questions you ask and frown at some of them. Whereas I think it's a little more forgiving crowd here, where they I'll never profess to be an expert on certainly on the technical aspects of baseball. I'm a fan as much as anyone. So when they're indulging you to either fumble through a question or not grasp a certain play, there's a lot of generosity and grace there that I certainly appreciate.
And speaking of growing the game, one of the aspects that we're now focusing on is what we're doing to grow the game in 2020. And the Western Canadian Baseball League, we chatted a little bit about this with Kevin Kavami late last year, right after the season, and he gave us the updates on Sylvan Lake being granted a franchise in 2021, also the change of ownership structure for the Brooks Bombers heading into 2020. And I asked him about the Edmonton Prospects, and there's been this weird cloud hanging over that organization because there were questions about whether there's a minor league team coming to town or if the Prospects are even going to be given another lease for Remax Field, all kinds of questions. And it finally came to a head in late November. And finally, we have some clarity on that. So Ian and I are going to be back in just a couple of seconds here to talk more about what we have planned for 2020. But we want to segue now into a conversation that I had just recently with Jordan Blundell of the Edmonton Prospects, as they can now officially say they're looking forward to the 2020 campaign. This is Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. Jordan, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks a bunch for having me on, Joe. Happy New Year to Alberta Dugout Stories.
I appreciate it. Hey, how does it feel to have some certainty around the future of the organization, at least for 2020?
It's a relief, for sure. In the fall, there's a lot of frustration and trepidation of what we can and can't, go ahead and do and work towards. I guess summing it up, it was frustrating for sure from our side. And with respect to the City of Edmonton, we understand, and we always understood what their needs are and how they work through their process of what they need out of Remax Field. We've always viewed it as a partnership, and the good people that we work with at the city, they view it as such as well. Unfortunately, we weren't able to hammer out the 10-year lease that was mandated by City Council to approach 10 years at Remax Field. In the City of Edmonton, they're looking at redeveloping or developing different parts of the river crossing. The river crossing's located right in that river valley, right at Remax Field in Riverdale, just after that bridge, the beautiful bridge in Edmonton. And they're looking at doing some really creative things down there to attract more people to the River Valley. The Remax Field was at one point not potentially part of those plans. And a couple of years ago, we had a campaign of Remax Field, the crown jewel of the River Valley. We put a lot of effort behind the idea of saving the ballpark long term for the City of Edmonton and the fans of our program and baseball fans in general in this area. And we viewed that as successful because the city then put out their master plan for the river crossing, and the 4 options included Remax Field. So we viewed that as a success, that the work that we had done to that point worked. So City Council mandated 10-year lease to be negotiated. And we worked through that process with the city. There was another group involved that we were never really made aware of what their plans were. And that's where we get into that frustrating part. But thankfully, we're a go for 2020. That's been the case here for a few months now. I think it was late November where we were actually able to sign that deal. There was a little bit of confusion from what we had announced and the timing of it as to when the city was comfortable getting something signed, which was kind of out of our hands, unfortunately. But we're a go for 2020. We're super excited. We have goals, dreams, aspirations for RE/MAX Field. We feel like we're stewards of the sport of baseball in the city of Edmonton. We feel like we provide a great product, a great atmosphere for baseball fans in the city to come down to the River Valley. It's the best patio in the city. Albertans, everybody knows what patio season's all about. Mm-hmm. It's a limited amount of time to get out there and enjoy that sun in the summer. And we feel like we have the best patio in the city, and we have entertainment going on for you to enjoy that big patio. So we're looking forward to 2020, no doubt, Joe.
Do you approach this year as a bit of an opportunity to maybe prove your point so that you can nail down that long-term deal?
Yeah, good point. I think we've approached every year exactly in that fashion, that we don't take for granted the privilege it is to play in RE/MAX Field, the ability to use that facility and with the history and be in that home clubhouse, with Jim Edmonds was in there, man, the big time names were in there. That's a privilege for us, and we appreciate that. We're hopeful to have a long-term lease signed before we even get to first pitch. Now, that's potentially wishful thinking from our end. It's not up to us on the date and the timing of that, but that's what we're working towards. And that won't change how we approach our season. Every game, every day we're in there engaging with our fans is an opportunity for us to establish a connection that hopefully is a long-term one with current fan, meaning future fan, and that growth can be exponential. You get a 22-year-old into the ballpark a couple of years ago when we first got in RE/MAX Field, who's now maybe 26, 7, 28. They're starting a family, and in a couple of years, their kids are playing baseball, and that's where we see that exponential growth and the opportunity to now engage who once was a young person, a young professional, now turning into a family, and that went from one fan to a family of 4 fans, and then thus it grows. And that's how we view that. As far as what our plans are for this year, we've got big plans. We got a little bit of a late start compared to years previous, as we didn't know what our future was until late November. But we want to push that fan attendance up over 70,000. It steadily has grown. Our attendance increased last year on average a slight amount. We broke 2,000 2 years ago. We were just above that this past year. And we feel like with the way the weather was, we missed out on a lot of opportunity. And obviously we're going to deal with weather again. Mm-hmm. But our goal is to push over 70,000. We're right in that low 60,000 right now. And we think with the hard work that we're willing to put in and the ideas and the creativity we have in our front office, that we can achieve that goal. So 70,000 fans is where we're kind of putting that bar for us this year.
And I couldn't help but notice, even in the days afterwards, of being able to say, hey, we've dotted the I's and crossed the T's on at least the deal for the next year, is that there seems to be a little bit of momentum behind working with other organizations within the city of Edmonton in hopes of drawing some attention to the Prospects brand through maybe the Stingers or other organizations.
Yeah, great point. We were super excited to partner with the Stingers, FC Edmonton, and the Edmonton Eskimos, and offer a ticket package, 4 tickets for $79 that gives you the ability to check out any of the teams, all the sports included, and it gave us an opportunity to cross-promote and maybe have football fans that aren't so familiar with baseball become a little bit more aware of our program, and vice versa for basketball and football and soccer, and the quartet of teams to be able to come together and hammer out that idea and bring it to fruition was something we viewed as a cool thing. This is an opportunity for us to team up with other teams and organizations in the city of Edmonton. And a lot of credit needs to go to Ryan Jago. He's kind of our director of sales and tickets and promotions and corporate sponsorship. He did some great work there, and likewise with the other three organizations involved to put together something that we could use as a group of teams and get out there into the public. We're always – it's a battle for entertainment dollars, with movies and camping and other sports and everything else that people have the ability to spend their hard-earned money at. It was an opportunity for us to maybe get in their minds, right around that Christmas season that, baseball season's right around the corner, and we'd love to have you down at RE/MAX Field to enjoy our product. And, we feel confident that if it is your first time coming down to RE/MAX Field, that you'll come back. We're that confident in our product. Maybe you're not a season ticket holder and maybe you only come once or twice more, but that's the point. We don't need every one of our fans to be diehard 28 games in a row. We love that. And we do have fans that are like that. But just to even expose, a family and kids to the sport of baseball is ultimately our goal. So a really cool ticket pack that we were able to get done.
Well, and the great part about even last year is what you're starting to see is a little bit more parity. I mean, even though the Dogs were ultimately victorious, I mean, every game seemed to be a bit of a barn burner. I mean, everybody had an opportunity to win every single game, and you're starting to see even the newer teams, the Fort McMurrays and the Brookses, having some successes as well, and that's got to grow a little bit of that, the rivalry aspect of the game across this province.
For sure, and you know what? I think that is important for the sport in Western Canada, in the prairies. I think that our league has the ability to inspire youth players to work towards achieving a goal, which is playing for one of the teams in the WCBL. It's another stepping stone on the way up the sport of baseball's ladder. There's been countless amount of guys that have made it to affiliated pro baseball and independent pro baseball from our league. It provides players that come to play in the WCBL an opportunity to experience what pro baseball is like. And by that, I mean that 7:05 start with the anthems and fans and peanuts and popcorn and beer and hot dogs and all that is pro baseball. And when you're a kid, for me, I know that this is the case for me when I was 12, walking into RE/MAX Field was eye-opening. Jaw-dropping maybe is too big of a word, but to walk into that facility and then walk through the concourse and see the ballpark and see the sport being played and displayed at that level was something that, I've never forgotten. And it's a privilege for me to be able to get to be inside the clubhouse in the dugout now and look up into the crowd and see a 10-year-old wearing a Prospects hat and cheering for our guys and catching foul balls and coming out and supporting us. That bodes well for the opportunity for that young player, boy or girl, to end up getting to the college level and playing in our league. So the league significance in Western Canada, it's almost understated how important it is, to have that level, that caliber of baseball in your community. It just brings up the level from the grassroots. And our goal as an organization is to be really involved with the grassroots. I know multiple teams fairly well and their front offices, and they have the same mindset too. So the more we're able to, as a league, to continue to spur development at the youngest levels, it brings fans, it brings up the level of baseball, and then hopefully it brings more local players to our rosters. We're not full of Edmontonian players. We'd love to be, and And we have that opportunity to continue to grow that. And, ultimately, how great would that be if all our rosters, you really don't have any imports. It's all Canadian, it's all local. That would be the dream. I don't think that that's realistic, and I think it's good to bring in players from outside our community to experience what this is, and also to bring in a different attitude and flavor. Baseball gets played a little differently all over North America. California's a little different than Florida and Texas and New York, and it's good to get a mixture of players and try and build, build towards a common goal with a bunch of strangers almost, and that's the fun part of managing a ball club.
And speaking of that aspect, now with the business side of things sort of in the rearview mirror, it allows you to kind of work forward on the on-field product, but also making sure that you're getting butts in the seats at the end of the day. How excited are you to finally get that piece of the puzzle out of the way, and you're able to now move on to the fun stuff, quote unquote?
You're right. And it's not like we weren't kind of doing that behind the scenes, but without knowing for sure, we were limited onto how much we could explore partnerships and marketing ideas. However, we did kick some ideas around, and you're right, now we're at the point where we can really get after it full go. We're excited about building towards that 70,000 fans through the turnstiles this year. We've kind of earmarked some games that we really want to highlight for our fans, and try and push the attendance up for those specific games. Not that we're going to ignore other games on our schedule, but opening day last year was special. Minor baseball day has been special for us the last couple of years. Father's Day Sunday game has been awesome for us. Canada Day, obviously, if you're unaware, Canada Day at Remax Field is a special game, just a special event in Canada. And then we look at the All-Star Game, which we're hosting again July 18th and 19th. We've got some cool ideas for a Saturday home run derby and fan fest and the Sunday game. And then you look at our fan appreciation game at the end of the summer. So we kind of look at 5 or 6 games where we really want to focus on attracting as many fans as we can. And that buzz that's created by more bodies in the seats is just special. And like we talked off air there for a little bit about what opening day was like for us last year. It had that buzz. It was 3,000 plus. There was a murmur. There was a buzz in the stands, and it lasted the whole game. And if you were at that game, you'll remember that game. And if you were at that game, you probably came to another game in the hopes that energy was there again. And it's unrealistic to carry that energy throughout the whole year, but we do have some real specific games that are super cool to be at, that the attendance is really big, and we're going to work hard to grow those.
Looking forward to it. I just can't wait for opening day already. I know we're in January, but we'll get there before too long. Jordan, thanks so much for the update, and all the best in planning ahead to the 2020 campaign.
Appreciate you having me on, Joe. Thanks a bunch. Happy New Year, and we'll hear from you soon.
Back now with Ian Wilson, my co-conspirator, co-creator, co-contributor to Alberta Dugout Stories here on Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. And we've taken a look back now, Ian, at 2019, and let's look ahead to 2020. We're a few days in, obviously, but some pretty big plans in store. We still haven't sat down to have our annual general meeting, a.k.a. we have a couple of beer and talk about what we might be able to get accomplished in the next year. But is there anything front and center story-wise that you're hoping to accomplish over the next 12 months or so?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things obviously we'll be keeping an eye on, and just coming out of that interview with Jordan Blundell, one thing to touch on for sure is the Western Canadian Baseball League All-Star Game, which is happening in Edmonton again this year. It happened there in 2019, and I thought it was a really neat event. You were talking to me earlier about highlights from the year, and that was definitely one of them, just to see the WCBL talent, the high-end talent assembled in one spot, and just to see them interact with each other and see them take part in a home run derby and an all-star game. I thought it was just a really cool, really neat event, and just a nice kind of celebration of not only the league but the but the game in Alberta as well. So that's one event I'll be keeping an eye on. There's a few other tournaments that are coming to the province this year. I think it's a 15U event in Okotoks, and then Fort McMurray has a pretty big tournament they're hosting this year as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. As always, the MLB draft is one to watch, and just we're entering that phase of the year where there's a lot of kids down in the States playing baseball and studying, and just to see the stories emerge out of there, who's going to have success at that level and really turn some heads, in NCAA and NAIA and all those other conferences south of the border.
And not only that, but we also have some stuff going on north of the border as well. We have the Canadian College Baseball Conference that'll be firing up in the not-too-distant future. I'm just kind of hoping that Mother Nature agrees to play a little better. I know the All-Star Game was one of those situations where they were kind of touch and go for a while there. Like even in the conversations with Jordan Blundell, it was, man, we did pretty well considering the rain opened up. There wasn't really a prolonged hot spell that we saw in this province all summer, and it'd be nice to be able to get back to some sense of normalcy just so we can maybe enjoy a few more games of baseball.
Yeah, one of the other kind of weather events that has emerged the last couple of years is from forest fires, and we've seen the smoke kind of coming in early in the season the last couple of years, and I know that the WCBL kind of enacted a kind of air quality advisory guidelines for those situations. So hopefully that's another weather event that doesn't impact us too greatly and allows us to get outside, and both for the broader good of just getting outdoors and also just getting out to see some baseball as well.
And it's not just on the field that we're going to be focusing on as well. We'll still be doing our usual historical pieces as well. I've been kind of fumbling around a little bit with a look back at the All-American Professional Girls Baseball League and the Alberta contributions. We focused on one, but there were also 9 others that I'd like to be able to do a little bit of a focus on before too long here. And I know that as well, we're hitting a century mark for a Alberta championship. So I'm going to be diving into that story as well in the days, weeks, and months ahead. And also off the field, and not to kind of throw Ian under the bus a little bit here, but you're working on something because there's a new book coming out about baseball cards.
Yeah, I believe the title is The Wax Pack, and it's a fellow in the States who, the premise is he opened a pack of, I think it was 1986 Topps baseball cards, and he vowed to track down every player in that pack and just see what they were up to now. So I think Vince Coleman and Carlton Fisk were some of the bigger names, but that were in that pack, as well as former Edmonton Trappers manager Gary Templeton and star outfielder for the Trappers as well, Gary Pettis. So I'm very curious to read that book when it comes out, and it just sounds like an interesting concept. And of course, you and I love our baseball cards as well, so there's that aspect of it as well. So that should be an interesting one to chase down, and hopefully we can get some good reads and maybe a podcast appearance out of that as well.
And obviously, maybe even playing a little bit. I do this on social media every so often, is throw out an old Calgary Cannons or Medicine Hat Blue Jays or Edmonton Trappers baseball card as well. So I'd love to hear from those who actually have some of those packs or maybe some of those sets and binders somewhere, because how cool would it be to just have like every single Alberta-based baseball card in a binder somewhere? Like, I can't imagine just having that nostalgia right in front of me. Man, that'd be awesome.
The hunt continues, right? Like, it just seems like such a piecemeal Kijiji garage sale, online hunt for items like that. And yeah, I'm sure someone has a secret stash somewhere of some old Cannons employee has like the treasure room of Cannons gear somewhere. And yeah, it's always fun to track that down. And I know last year too, just speaking of historical story is just doing the last year was like the 100th anniversary of the Black Sox scandal.
Yeah.
That was another story that was fun to work on, and just to read about Happy Felsch coming up to play for Regina, and then make the tour through Alberta and see how those Black Sox players were greeted. And so I've got a few things in mind. I don't want to say too much about yet, because as you know, sometimes you end up putting these things off for another year or a few months, but there's definitely some stories of barnstorming tours and players from the old Negro Leagues who made their way to Western Canada as well, and you can never forget about the Lethbridge Mounties, Medicine Blue Jays, Edmonton Trappers, and the Calgary Cannon stays. There's great fodder there that we haven't tapped into as much as I'd like. So we've got some work to do for sure.
It kind of feels like we're just getting started, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's funny. I was thinking about that, because we started up in 2017, and I don't feel, especially on the historical front, I don't feel like we've tapped into that anywhere near the amount that we're able to. And having said that, as well as the current baseball community, there's just there's a million stories out there that we can do, and looking forward to chasing down as many of those as we can.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All you got to do is stay tuned to AlbertaDugoutStories.com, or you can continue listening. Subscribe wherever you get your favorite podcasts here to Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast. Ian, as always, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast, and looking forward to working with you again in 2020.
Thank you so much.
We want to thank Jordan Blundell as well for his insights into what's gone on with the Edmonton Prospects this offseason. And as always, we want to thank you for downloading and listening. We'll be back again next week with another episode of Alberta Dugout Stories, the podcast.